This meeting is being recorded.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to ESS, Empire State Sports and the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Tonight, your host, Joey Arena, I'm Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Goldslaw, and our very special guest, Bob Ahlfeld, who is the voice of Clarkson hockey. Bob, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Joey. Good to see you guys.
You too. Well, Bob, glad to have you on our first show in a while for the Wise Guys. We usually take the winter off, so we're back, ready to get some shows. If you can't tell, Pete's in sunny Florida. You can see the sun glaring in behind him. Well,
I couldn't tell what that thing was back there. That bright light in the sky.
That's the sun. Yeah. So, Bob, usually we just like to start this out, let you introduce yourself to our viewers. And so give us whatever you want to tell us, your life story, all good, all bad, whatever it is. But obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Clarkson hockey and probably some Section 10 baseball officiating, along with some stories about your dad. But before we dive into all that, just have at it and give us a little background on who we're talking to.
Thanks. My name's Bob Ahlfeld. I've been off and on, off for about 5 years, but back on a couple years ago, doing Clarkson's hockey games. I began, I'm a Messina grad, went to college, University of Missouri, moved back through a series of very dumb moves, each one dumber than the next. Joey's a golfer, you put one in the woods and think, I got this shot. I can get out of here. Hit one deeper in the woods and ended up in Canton. But no, I was blessed. Blessed to obviously have my dad and family as well. But began the Clarkson gig in 1996, and I was working at WPDM doing all the games there. So I would do back then about 200 games a year myself. We cover about 270. The games that I didn't do were the ones I couldn't get to out with Clarkson or, pardon me, because we had the two stations going, so we had two high school football games in a day or, a couple basketball games at night or whatever. I couldn't get to them. So that was a lot of fun. Went on to fundraising at Clarkson for a bit, started the hockey games, gave it up to do some more fundraising and then left that. And, when Mike Valancourt, who took over for me doing Clarkson, going into last season, took a new gig down in Charlotte, they asked me back. So it's been a lot of fun to get back in the saddle. That's for sure. It's a great gig with a lot of fans and just it's always fun to. You don't realize how much you miss it, But I did. It was tough not doing it, but at the same time, my boys are growing up. I got to watch them a little bit more. And when I got asked to come back and do it, I talked to them and my family, and they were good with it. My partner, Diane, was good with it. So we're ready to go.
What about, the first thing that pops into my mind, what about travel for you when it comes to this is it on you to get there? Or do you travel with the team? Or?
I generally I work in St. Lawrence County IDA now, so I can travel with the team if need be. I didn't fly to Wisconsin this year. My boy had a game, so the young man does the games with me. Casey did such a nice job. He went out there. I'll usually just drive day of, and station picks that up too. So, and the hotel is picked up also by the station. If I want to ride the bus, I can. It's you can only ride so many buses. Let's put it that way. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but sometimes and they're great people. That's one of the things that when you don't ride the bus, you don't get to meet the players as much as you do when you ride 6 hours to Princeton with them or whatever it is. But it's great to meet those guys and get to know the new guys and see how the young men progress through their careers too. How they come in as freshmen, they're kind of quiet, emerge as leaders, whether they go on to the NHL or just into life, in traveling with them the past couple of years, you see some guys, maybe played in the early 2000s that got kids of their own. It's kind of wild to say, look at a kid and say, "Oh, I broadcast all your dad's hockey games." Like, really? Dad played hockey? Yeah, he was pretty good too. You better listen to him. So it's a lot of fun. The relationships are what make it even more worthwhile. Not just with the fans, but with players and their families and coaches. It really makes it a lot of fun. And whether all the coaching staffs I've worked with, and I've worked with just about all of them, since Mark was there. So you still stay in touch with them. Like you remember certain drinks a coach likes, or how they like their coffee, or it's certain little things at dinner they used to do, just little things like that. You kind of smile at you only know from traveling with somebody for 6 months a year.
Well, let's talk a little bit of college hockey right now, because obviously the Frozen Four was just decided over the weekend, which is going to be played in Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay, not this weekend, but following weekend.
Is Pete going?
I'm going to be down there on that Thursday. I come home on the Saturday, but I could on Thursday drive over and watch.
It again?
The Frozen Four is in Tampa Bay, Pete.
When we going?
A week from Thursday.
Yeah.
I might have to take some time off.
But were you surprised? So my son's working up at the Olympic Arena, so he was up there for ECACs, and he was keeping me track of hockey scores as I was down at New York State Final Four basketball with Dave, and he's like, "Dad, Colgate's winning this thing," and I'm like, "Well, geez, if Colgate wins this, I can't imagine Cornell's going to get a bid." And then Cornell, out of the 4 teams from the ECACs got in. Were you surprised at that?
No, because I think the beauty of the college game is you pretty much know there's really no more backroom deals. It's not east-west. It's not, if you have the numbers and the pairwise system and it's publicly available, if you're good enough, you're there. And they go strictly by pairwise, so if they take the top 16, you'd say Atlantic hockey generally doesn't have a team in the top 16, so their winner gets in. Other teams are on the bubble are praying. Like Cornell lost to Harvard in overtime Friday. If they win that game Friday, they're guaranteed to get in. But they lost. And then the Saturday game, probably were rooting against Colgate, but they couldn't have 2 upsets. They couldn't have, it was Merrimack and B. They couldn't have Colorado College beating St. Cloud. If CC had won, they were below that Mendoza line at 16. They couldn't have Michigan Tech get beat in the CCHA. So they were rooting for that. Once all that happened, they're in. So I wasn't surprised. And Colgate had a really weird year. Like they were like 1-4-3 in February and 6-1 in March. Had a great January. They were kind of crappy in November. They were hot and cold. But they're really talented. And when they turned it on, they were good. And their goalie played great. He was very good. So I wasn't surprised. And, I felt bad the 2 scorers, especially Harvard getting pole whacked the way they did. Harvard got beat bad, and so did Colgate. The first scores on the Thursday and Friday, I don't know if Pete and Dave, you saw them, but there were some real blowouts the first round. Like real blowouts, like 11-1, and
it was crazy.
Canisius got beat 9-2 on Atlantic hockey by Minnesota, but that game I watched that game. The game was tight till late in the second. And then once the Minnesota got a major, scored twice on it to go from down 2-1 to up 4-2, and the Canisius kind of pulled the chute after that, and the deluge was on. And So for your first question, Joey, no, I wasn't surprised that 4 teams made it. I knew the 3 were in pretty much for sure. I mean, Quinnipiac and Harvard were top 8; they're in no matter what. And then Cornell beat some teams. They lost to BU yesterday. They should have beat BU at BU in the regular season, but they beat UConn, who was good. They They beat some teams early in the year. That to me, that's the beauty of the pairwise. It's not you don't have that choice. It's a mathematical formula. Everybody agrees to it. There's a bit of complaining about it sometimes, but for the most part, you're where you are. If you're not in the top 12, 13 end of the year, then you better pray no one gets upset in the league tournaments. If you are there, then you're good enough. So the beauty of it is a win in October means just as much as a win in February and March. Like you look back on Clarkson's season. Well, last year they finished just out they finished 16th and underneath the line in the pairwise. This year they had some games really they wanted back. They could have beat New Hampshire, probably should have beat Lake State twice. They lost to Mercier's one game, tied Holy Cross. Take those 4 games, make them wins. Maybe a couple in the league here and there. You're a different animal. You get 20 wins and you're there. That was their year, So, but you're measured for your whole year. And that's the beauty of that pairwise. That's why I kind of like it.
So you got 3 basketball guys sitting here. Dave's a hockey guy, but it's been a long time since I followed Clarkson hockey. So describe this pairwise thing. What is that exactly?
Well, it's like how you watch.
Is that like the RPI and
yeah? So the RPI is the same formula, with the pairwise is something a little more. I take the RPI and add a few things to it. Essentially, it's your winning percentage, your opponent's winning percentage, your opponent's winning percentage. And they've added some things too. So, like if you win a game on the road, you get more points than winning at home. So, what that did was it encouraged the teams like Minnesota and Michigan who can afford to fly teams in, and they play 20 home games out of 34. This way, you're playing, you get outside of your league games, you get rewarded for going on the road and winning. And not just winning against anybody. The better teams you play, then the better off you're going to be. Now, the hard part is you're scheduling 2 years out, right? So historically, New Hampshire's been pretty good. This year they weren't. So Clarkson played them, and New Hampshire and lost, and New Hampshire's like 11-20. So you had a bad year, right? So you're scheduling thinking they're going to be good. Your schedule's already done 2 years out. So the pairwise is, I think it's a very fair system. And if you win a game against a team like, because there's 64 teams, if you beat team number 63, you're not penalized for beating a bad team. But if you lose to them, then you are penalized. So it's a good either way. And it's a settled system. I think the coaches all agree to it. You walk into the year, that's where it is. If you're not, and the better your league is, then the better you're going to be. In a lot of ways, because you're playing better teams within your league. So the better teams you play, the more you win, the better off you are. So you don't have to. That being said, you can be in a bad league and have like 22 wins, have a lower pairwise, and if you're in Hockey East and you're 18-15, but you're playing 5 teams that are in that mix. You know what I mean? So the better teams you play, the better off you are.
Okay, so you're rolling. So you're in essence rolling the dice sometime to play some better teams in the hopes of getting a win and getting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, like they make the schedule 2 and 3 years out. So
right.
You're looking ahead. And I use New Hampshire because generally they've been a very strong
right.
program this year.
Not so much.
Last year they were a bit down. So, but then again. We played New Hampshire and Merrimack made the tournament this year, NCAA's. So you're thinking, all right, New Hampshire's good, Merrimack's going to be bad, so we'll get a yin and a yang. Well, it's flipped this year. Ideally you want them both to be good.
Right.
And at the same time, teams want to play you. They want to beat you to help their pairwise.
Exactly.
So like some years a win over Clarkson. This year a win over Clarkson wasn't as valuable as last year, 2 years ago. So and again, like they travel with St. Lawrence, they separate from St. Lawrence too, but the benefit of having, say, a Merrimack in New Hampshire is you guys can come here and play too, and we'll go there and play, home and home. Like they're doing a thing with Michigan Tech and Lake Superior where they came here, you played them each. Clarkson played Lake Superior twice at Lake State, and SLU went to Michigan Tech. This year, both teams come here, this coming year, and they'll flip the coin. But, Houghton to the Sioux is 4.5 hours up in the Upper Peninsula. So you're not going to drive back and forth to play doubleheader that way. So it just makes it, and you do a 4-year tilt. That way you get 4 years of playing each other, and, you're hoping they're going to be good. If they're not, well, but you better beat them.
Yeah.
Bob, I'm looking at the schedule for the Frozen Four. Who's your pick? Do you think for this? Because
I'd love it. I'd love to say Quinnipiac. I just think those Big Ten teams are really good this year. So I'd probably have to pick Minnesota, and it pains me to say that because just hate to pick but it'd be nice for an ECAC team to do it. And Quinnipiac they're good. They're solid. They're very, I'm trying to think of, you guys are basketball guys. They remind me, this is going to go back a long time, of Coach Welsh's good basketball teams. In a lot of ways, they do everything well. It's not one thing they don't do. I mean, some things are better than others, obviously, but there's not one thing they don't do. Each end of the ice, each zone of the ice, they're good. Defensively, they're good. They can score. They got a good goalie. Like when Coach Welsh had those teams going, they could press. They could grind it inside. They could, hit a shot to win the game. They could, they could suffocate you on defense. They could do everything well. And that's what Quinnipiac was this year. Now, curious thing is, and they're the oldest team, I think, of the Frozen Four because they got I don't have it in front of me. They had at least 5 guys that played their 5th year. Like their top defenseman, the kid named Zach Metza, he's going to leave playing 180 college games.
Wow.
He's playing, and he didn't play every game his freshman year. He was in and out of the lineup his freshman year. But he's played every game the last 4 years, plus another 20 or 25. Just playing 40 a year basically because they've been good. And then another 20. He played about 180, 185 games. He's 25 years old. So it's the COVID year. He got the COVID year for the extra year, so that helped. But so probably Minnesota. I have to say that I hope I'm not right.
I agree with you on both ends of that. I think Minnesota, and I don't want Minnesota, but
yeah.
So I agree with you on that.
They're very good. Their coach is a very nice man. My previous stint, he was at St. Cloud State, a really nice guy. Took the job at the U because he can count. St. Cloud State's paying him this, and the U offered him that. So
yeah,
and he can stay in state. So you got to take the money.
And Minnesota had a pretty good game against St. Cloud State to get into the Frozen Four. So
yes, they did. Yeah, they did. They played. That was the beauty was the first 2 days were some real blowouts, more than I'd ever seen. Pardon me. But the last Saturday, Sunday were tighter games. Cornell got a win, or Cornell lost a tight one to BU. They were good games, and we capped off last night. Michigan won in overtime.
Yeah, 2-1. I think it was, wasn't it?
They scored Michigan got a late power play goal, about 5 minutes to go to tie it, and then it didn't take long in the OT. Unlike Lake Placid, I had a joke in Lake Placid on Friday because both games went overtime. And the first game, Quinnipiac Colgate went double overtime. And I was doing the games for the ESPN Plus feed. They said, "Fuck, you guys aren't paying me by the word. I'd be a rich man."
Well, in the Frozen Four matchup, so we got don't we have a Herb Brooks game going on? Do we have Minnesota versus BU? Isn't that like
Minnesota
the whole?
BU. Yep. Yep.
That was the
Oh
whole
yeah, that's the whole.
80 Olympic
already
hockey
had
team,
that.
right?
Yep, they already had that scene out of Miracle. You know, it's. I don't think they haven't played each other in a long time. In that, if you remember it, I mean, I don't remember it. I remember watching the movie, but they had played each other in the NCAA's like 3 and 4 years in a row. So there was a lot of animosity between them. So it was generally the Massachusetts kid stayed at BU or BC, and the Minnesota kid went to the U. But at that time, I'm trying to think who broke it. He played with the Sabres. Really good player too. A kid from out of the country. He was the first non-Minnesota kid to play in a long time. Thomas Vanek. Vanek was his name.
Oh,
He was the first one. Yeah, he was the first one to play for the U that was a non-Minnesota kid. They were like added only being from Minnesota, and they were getting lapped a bit. And their roster now is, I would say, 20 to 26 are from Minnesota, but they're taking, if you're a player, it's a different animal too. You're not the way the hockey world recruits now. I mean, you're recruited nationally, with the USNDP program. I mean, look at the kids from Brazier. Rico out in Northern Michigan, Rico DiMatteo, Carter Rose has played all over the USHL, coming to Clarkson. Will Arquette played all over the place, came to St. Lawrence. So Rico went out, and being a goalie is different too, right? They can count. That's the goalies aren't as beholden to a school. They can, I'm being recruited. I got Dave Bartlett just had a good freshman year. Well, I don't want to go there because I ain't gonna play, right? So goalies can be a differently able recruiting class than other players.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, you look at their roster. Well, Bartlett had a hell of a freshman year. He's not leaving anytime soon. I guess I want to play.
Right.
That was when my boys were both growing up in hockey. They wanted to be goalies, and I was doing the hockey games with the radio. So I had the line chart in front of me. And that's how he sounds so smart. We have a line chart. So you get Bartlett, Gosselin, Rayon, one line. Next few lines are there. I'll give you some Brazier names: Lalonde, Lefebvre, and Dow. The next line.
Jesus, don't put Lefebvre in there.
Yeah, right.
For sure. So, I showed the boys you got 4 lines of forwards and 3 lines of D. There's 18 guys. They all play, but only one goalie plays. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be that goalie that sits. So, and it saved me a lot of money too. Goalie equipment is expensive.
Yeah. And they're always growing out of it.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Especially my younger one. He's growing like a weed.
Yeah. So watching March Madness right now in hoops, one of the the things that I've noticed, and obviously it's been brought up a lot, and you kind of touched on it a little bit with hockey, was the COVID year is making a difference for all these kids.
In the transfer portal too. The
Well,
ability of
that
guys
was
to
what I was
move.
just going to bring out. How's the transfer portal affecting hockey? Because the one thing that I noticed on the basketball side this year is I think John Calipari's days of one and done idea is over, because the other schools are now, you know what, I'm not going to take a flyer on an 18-year-old kid who's not NBA material already. You know what, I'll go get that 22-year-old in the transfer portal who's been playing for 3 years, and it has got, he's a man already.
Well, I mentioned I'm a Mizzou grad, and they were god awful last year, and they made the tournament this year. And how they lost at Princeton, I don't know. I was broadcasting my hockey game that night. I had to score at halftime. I'm like, I almost yelled "son of a beep" on the air, like the score at halftime. but their coach came in, and Dennis Gates used the portal. He brought in 3 guys from Cleveland State the one guy transferred with him as a junior. Other guys were grad transfers. And then he brought a kid from Wisconsin, Milwaukee, another kid from somewhere else in that Mid-America Conference. They were all 23-year-olds that could play. A kid from Clemson, it looked like a CBA team. But hey, they won. I'm happy, right? So to your point, yeah, the portals, and it's affecting, Clarkson's lost some guys to the portal this year. They had 5 guys leaving the portal. They're going to be seniors. So, it's happening in hockey. It's going to be curious how it swings, like it'll swing, one way until kids start leaving and realizing that, I'm leaving a scholarship situation in any sport, baseball, hockey, basketball, football, and then I try and go somewhere else. I don't get a scholarship, like at some point in time, there's only so many available, and they may say, you know what, maybe you just weren't good enough. Or, hey, coaches talk, right? Sometimes a kid may not be built for the system or the coach or the school. Academically, they may not be a fit. Generally, I think our league, the ECAC, is pretty good about that, but you may change your major. That being said, you said if coaches can change, why can't I go somewhere else? You're use a football as an example. If you came in as a wide receiver in a pass happy offense, the coach gets a better job, and now you're playing, Vince Lombardi, who wants to do 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
3 yards in a cloud of dust, yeah.
I ain't seen the ball, playing Mike Nicholas football, so maybe I want to go somewhere where I can get some burn and some catch and play. So it's going to be curious to see how it all plays out. But you're right, Joey. I think, yeah, it's going to be hard to bring guys along because you don't want to play. And like think of a guy like John Morant. Maybe when he left, and I can't remember what school he went to, like Middle Tennessee, something like that. Is that where he went? There's the Grizzlies now. He was a stud a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah.
He may have been
Murray. He was at Murray State.
Yeah, Murray State. He may have been a guy that played 2 years at Murray State, and then with the portal now, somebody like Calipari or somewhere else says, I'll bring you into our place because you've grown into a man. You're coming at 18, and he had Dwayne Wade may have left Marquette at one point in time to go to one of the bigger schools. So it's in how each coach, it's like being an agent now. You got a pro coach, you get a GM too. You got to find your way and find the right mix too. So kids leaving the portal, if you're enjoy you coach, if you got a kid that wants to transfer from Brazier to Salmon River and isn't maybe for the wrong reasons, I don't like Coach Ray Home. Well, Coach Salmon may not like you either, If you're a problem as a player, then you're going to have some problems. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out going forward.
Well, and I'm really curious to see it and so I saw Charles Barkley getting interviewed last night on 60 Minutes, and they asked him about this and what he thought, and he thinks it's terrible for the game. And I still haven't made up my mind about it, but just watching this year's March Madness, I know I was getting sick and tired of watching 18-year-old kids playing in the national championship game. And now it's back to 22 and 23-year-olds. I think that Larry Bird was playing in the national championship game. He was 23 years old in that game. That's a man playing a basketball game. So, but Barkley was concerned that, the top 20, top 25 schools, the blue bloods, they're going to be the ones that get all these kids. Well, in basketball, you've only got 12 scholarships, and there are tons of basketball players out there.
Yeah.
Hockey, you just said it, you got 64 teams. In basketball, I think you're going to see the FDUs and the Florida Atlantics. I think for a couple more years anyway, I think you're going to see those teams be relevant. In hockey, what do you see in hockey when there's only 64 schools to pick from, as opposed to college basketball where there's 300 schools to pick from?
Well, the fear in hockey is, and here's, once the 5th year is done too, I think it's after this year, the 5th year the COVID, it hurt the Ivies because they don't offer, they have stringent rules. You play there for 4 years.
Right.
Those guys leaving
it.
Ivy programs, you're no matter what, you can't say if that, even though you lost that 5th year, can't play here. That's their rule. So, like one of the better players on Cornell, Jack Malone's in the portal, thinking he may go play somewhere else for his 5th year. So he's a proven player. Well, he's probably not coming to Clarkson. I hope he does, but it depends on what Casey needs too. Those guys are they going to get picked up by the bigger schools? And to your point, Joey, the teams that build, and maybe Clarkson may lose a kid, or it might be, the other leagues like Atlantic Hockey, like Robert Morris at Canisius, RIT may have a kid that freshman, sophomore blossomed into a really good player. And then they all have agents. They're called family advisors, but they all have agents, the agent gets a call from, BC's coach. Hey, you may want to come here and then play at a higher level and get more exposure. So I think that's a fear, I think, around the game, Casey met the Quinnipiac's top scorer is a kid named Colin Graff, who transferred from Union after last year. Now, Union's coach got asked to leave, for lack of a better term, last year. So they weren't sure who they were bringing in, so he left. And he enters the portal, and Casey tells a story that he looks at 8 a.m, he's in the portal. Casey sends him a note. 10:30, he gets back to him and said, I'm already called for. So what's that tell you? It means he's already planning to go somewhere. He went to Quinnipiac. I mean, it could have been anywhere else. He's had a hell of a year at Quinnipiac, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think in some ways in hockey, it may help the better teams, the higher profile teams. And in basketball, it may hurt the higher profile teams until they figure it out. Once they figure it out, then it'll be, NIL deals and all that. Duke and Kentucky and Kansas don't stay that way for not figuring things out.
Right.
And full disclosure, I'm a Mizzou grad. I can't say anything good about Kansas. Just that getting out there.
Missouri back in the day. So Norm Stewart, was that their coach?
I was there with Norm Stewart. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a force of nature, that's for sure. They had some. I was in my junior year. We got the number 1 in the country, and then they lost somebody dumb. Lost the Big 8 tournament. Lost first round. It was awful. They were supposed to be good. They had a great January and February, and then they cratered. They had some good teams. I was at their. This is going to be a football. I was there when Colorado, the year they won the national title, beat Missouri on 5th down. They got a 5th down.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the 5th down story.
I was at that game. I was there. And nobody knew it. My roommate, one of my roommates figured it out, but nobody really, now it never happened, right? Replay and all that stuff, but they couldn't figure it out.
Colorado's quarterback was Cordell Stewart, right?
No, he was the next year. It was Charles Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And again, with replay, he didn't score on 5th down either. He got stopped on 5th down. I'm showing my black and gold there. There's no way he scored on that play. But actually, who was an assistant coach on that team was Andy Reid.
Really?
Yeah. He was at Mizzou as offensive coordinator.
Huh.
See, we learned something today, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
If you see him reference Mizzou sometimes, that's why he was with Bob Stull, came in on Bob Stull's staff from UTEP to Mizzou, and then Stull got let go. Stull had that game they lost. They had next year, they had another couple of games. He had some games they should have won and didn't, and they couldn't get over the hump, but they let him go. he had 6 years there. He just couldn't quite get that signature win to get the program jumping. I hired Larry Smith. They got Gary Pinkel. Pinkel got it going for Mizzou in football. So,
well, this leads to a good question. We have people that get out of here, get out of the North Country, go to big schools, and you're the only person I've known that's ever left here and gone to Missouri. What led you to Missouri?
Journalism school. They got a strong J school, so I wanted to get into journalism, and the broadcasting part. The school owns the WPTZ. They own the NBC affiliate, and they own the morning newspaper. So my work was classwork. My junior year, if you want to get into radio, TV, did a public radio, and we got into TV too. So my first day, my first story I did, that was awful. I was live from a wildcat truck strike in Moberly, Missouri, burning tires, the whole thing. I'm there live in the scene, like that. It was, it's kind of like NASCAR. You're watching the new kids, but that was my grade. My story was my grade for my series of stories over 6 weeks, over 12 stories. So that was your training. And it was trial by fire. It was great. The play-by-play, I never knew what I could do. I did a little bit of basketball out there for an NAIA school, messing around, but I moved back here. I was working at WWNY, and I didn't do it for WPDM, but I did it for the old Mix 96. Did a couple hockey games because the guy got sick. So I did a couple high school games. I was decent at it. And then when Chris Kenyon left Clarkson, he left like the season was starting October 5th, and he got a late job in Baton Rouge for the Kingfish in the East Coast Hockey League. They had like 2 weeks to find a guy, and they couldn't do a national search. And Con Elliott called me, like, "Hey, what are you doing, Sonny?" and so really, he thought I could do it, and God bless him, I was able to. I got to admit, our first games were at Ohio State, and I was pooping bricks. I really was. I'm like, man, can I do this? I hope so. And the funny part was I got through that weekend, and Casey Jones was an assistant at Ohio State at that time. I found the tape of the first game. I interviewed him between periods. I was going through some old stuff, but doing the college game, and you do college from early October till high school begins. And I remember doing my first high school hockey game. And I was like, man, these kids are moving slow. Just compared to what you see, it's fast for high school. Geez, puck just takes a while to get there. But yeah, I went out, and then I went there for school, and again, never intended to move back, but I did. And I'm lucky to be here. I really am.
Well, Bob, covered a lot of Clarkson and college hockey. Let's get into what you're about to adventure into. Let's talk a little bit about Section 10 baseball umpiring. You're in charge of our Section 10 baseball umpiring crew?
I'm our president. Yep. And, that was, I don't do college baseball anymore. I gave it up probably about 5-6 years ago, maybe a little more than that. Once my boys are getting older into the games and stuff. College baseball is really fun until it's not. And when it's not, it's a long day. The college season's so short with double headers and stuff. It's a long day. You're doing the 7 and 9. So, and I couldn't do Clarkson's games given what I do there. I could do St. Lawrence a lot. I do Plattsburgh State. In Vermont was Division I, some of their games, some games over St. Mike's, but I really wouldn't venture too far out. So once SUNY Canton had some games, do JCC. But to high school season, it's a lot of fun. I still, it's this the quality of play isn't. I'm gonna sound like the curmudgeonly old man, but I think all would agree that when we were younger, there's just more kids playing baseball. The ball was better. There's some really good athletes, some really good individual players, but as a whole, each team isn't as deep as they were when we were younger. That's just baseball in general. But it's still fun being out there. It really is. It's a great way to make a little money, but it's not why you're doing it. If you're doing it for the money, do it for the wrong reason. It's a great way to be around the kids and the game. And what better way to enjoy a sunny day than on the ball field? You're right there. It's a lot of fun.
How's our numbers this year for umping?
Yeah, it could be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough on both sides. What people don't realize is I don't do softball. I did a long time ago. I gave it up. When I got into radio and stuff like that, I started doing baseball a little bit more and more. But, when you have a bunch of rainouts in a row and all the games compressed into one day, it's hard on our assigner to find, our guys available to work, guys and girls, and sometimes it's unfair to, some guys that do both sports. You might have a really good baseball game the next day we're on Monday. So I got Brazier Chateauguay playing for first place in the league. It's going to be a good game on Wednesday. But then everything's rained out on Tuesday. They move stuff to Wednesday, and the assigner needs you to do softball that day, and you're taking off that game. You know what I mean? So you may lose, or your schedule may get, I got 10 softball, 5 baseball. I want it to be even. It's up to the assigner too. So it's hard on him, and he's got to fill slots. He's just trying to fill, varsity gets 2 people. Ideally, we'd have 2 on every game. That's not really the case. And that hurts our training. Like the beauty of basketball having the same trouble, but in the old days, Joey'd be the probationary in basketball. Pete and Dave and they go watch Joey work the JV game, work with them part of the game, and Joey'd watch them do the varsity game. A lot of times our modified umpires doing a game by themselves. You're learning a lot, but you're not learning what you're doing wrong.
Right.
So you don't get that opportunity, don't get a feedback from a veteran like Pete Goslaw who can say, hey, you know what, you got to be quicker on your strike zone, or slow down your strike zone, or it's too low or too high or too wide. You don't know. And the modified coaches are a lot of times are not experienced. Like Ricky Newtown's experienced in Brazier, but a lot of times it's the kid trying to get who may or may not have played baseball, trying to get his tenure, so he doesn't know baseball the way the game should be played. So they don't get the feedback, and then you get negative feedback from, parents, to which players are pretty good. I would say the kids are pretty decent, but baseball is a different game too. I think not as many. I think everybody knows baseball, right? Everybody knows the rules. Like I've been doing it I'm 53 now. I've been around baseball all my life. I don't know. I mean, I know all the rules, but there are situations that happen that I just don't know. Baseball has a strange way of doing that to people. There's plays that just never happened before. And what do you do? Or there's a rule book play that you talk about, but oh my God, that actually happened? No way it happened. That's what makes it fun and makes for interesting discussion, but it can lead to some interesting conversations.
I did 1 year softball when I got out of high school. That was my summer job as an 18-year-old kid just out of high school.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting with Huffer Gibo and Ronnie Roach, and I can't remember who else it was, just to have a brush up on the rule book and whatnot. And I only umped for 3 months in my whole life, and I can't recall them, but I had 2 or 3 different, I can't believe this just happened, and I got to make a ruling on this.
Yeah.
As an 18-year-old kid with a bunch of 29-year-old, adult league players, I'm like, come on, did this really happen? Like, a field with a wire in play. Did we talk about this before the game? No other sport has those situations where, like, are you kidding? That just happened.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And actually, my eldest son just graduated, and I talked to our state interpreter a lot. It's Andy Draper from the scene, the guy who did pro baseball. He's a state interpreter now. So end of the year, he asked for like our top 5 craziest plays to talk about for a state meeting, and all 5 involved my kid. It just happened that way, like there was an interference call. He was the catcher. There was actually, it was a heck of a call by the umpires. They're playing Malone. He's on third base as the winning run, 1 out, and the pitcher's from Malone's in the windup. And Matt Caulfield sends Scotty trying to steal home for a squeeze play. He leaves, breaks before the pitcher goes from the windup. The pitcher correctly stepped back off the mound, then threw home, but the batter didn't realize it bunted the ball.
Oh, geez.
So the bunt gets down, winning run, game over, celebration, and the umpires got together and said he stepped back, so they call interference on the run didn't count. Yeah, but again, like if and the base umpire saw the kid step back, and I saw the kid step back, but I'm kind of have a trained eye. I'm watching the game, Everybody's going nuts. I'm like, this game's not over yet, kids.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Once they got together, they were right, correctly, and they correctly ruled interference and discounted the run and blah blah blah. So, but yeah, there's to your point. That really happens. That play happens. Yeah, that play happens somewhere. Actually, finally this year, because it happened in high school baseball, if the ball, like say a hard ground ball back to the pitcher, gets stuck in his webbing, the ball's still alive. The pitcher can throw his glove, and the first baseman catches it with the ball and the glove. That's an out, right? But other base runners can run. So the first baseman's got to throw the glove with the ball in it.
Oh, wow.
That happened. They had to make a ruling out of it. It happened somewhere, and there wasn't a rule about it. They had to come up with the rulings. The ball's still alive. That's what they decided on site. It had never happened before. They had to come up with a rule about it.
That was my next question, Bob. Has there been any big changes this year? I know in the pro leagues we're seeing the time issue. I just watched a game. I just went to a game Sunday down here, Detroit, Tampa. Are we going to see anything that freaky up there in state ball?
We'll never have a pitch timer. Just schools aren't going to be able to afford it. That's understandable. The one thing they finally did, Pete, was for some reason for a lot of years, how pitchers kind of now set up like how Mike Mussini set up with his foot off the rubber sideways, even though using the windup. They finally caught up with that, so you can do that now. So we used to have to tell a kid, you have to have both feet in the rubber from the windup, or at least parallel in your shoulders. If you're offset, it's an illegal pitch. And it was sort of it's tough enough to find kids to throw strikes up here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the biggest change. When I was doing college, they put in a great rule, and it sped the game up perfectly. Was you had 90 seconds between innings from the moment the last fielder crossed the foul line. So if the dugout's on the third base side, once the right fielder crossed the foul line, the clock began, and they had 90 seconds to get the inning started. If the batter wasn't ready, it was a ball or a strike in the batter. And if the pitcher wasn't ready, it was a ball. So you had to call it twice. And it was amazing to watch. The test run was the SEC tournament, in 2012, and they shaved 20 minutes off the game.
Wow.
So it's harder in high school now because you only got 11 or 12 kids. You know what I mean? So we try and get kids moving, but so that 90-second rule for college was a godsend. You had to. If I was the baseman guard, you wait a little stopwatch, and if you held it up, you could tell during your time. The first year I maybe called it twice, and then after that they were ready. I mean, even even think about a catcher stealing second base, get thrown out, or maybe going for a double. He'd hustle and throw his gear on and get back out there. He'd sprint in, throw his crap on, and ready to go. It was amazing. He was huffing and puffing behind the plate, but he was ready to go.
I'm sorry. I have to admit though, when I was at the Detroit Tampa game the other day, it's the first time I've ever seen the count or the time, and they actually a ball to the pitcher one time for not time, and they didn't do anything to batters. But we did there was a 9-inning game. The final score was 11-10 in the bottom of the ninth, and the game only took 2 hours and 48 minutes.
That's not bad. Yes, that's the whole idea. Is watch some of the old days games, on MLB Network. I watch sometimes just get a game from you watch maybe Bob Gibson pitch a game against the '68 World Series. You don't have it on. The game's like an hour 48 minutes. It wasn't. I'm a Yankee guy. So you didn't have guys like Giambi taking their time in the plate, or Big Poppy doing those mitts and spitting every pitch. You know what I mean? Just that.
I was going to say, as compared to some of those Yankees Red Sox games, it took 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
And again, I was never being a baseball fan. There's a reason the game has a pace, but I think the clock will restore some of it. I think there's time. I hope it doesn't cost teams a game. They'll figure it out. But, like the World Baseball Classic was fun to watch. That didn't have a clock. But
Right.
those games were exciting too, But over 162, it can be a long slog.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna be good for the game. I really do. And I wasn't big on the bigger bases. I don't like that. But that's me.
They really look weird.
Yeah, I'm a kind of an old curmudgeon in that aspect.
The plus was,
I don't think
the big plus, Bob, was it was 95 degrees Sunday, so I only had to sit there for 2 hours and 48 minutes. So I
was
was
good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think one of the beauties of baseball was like your batting average in 1938 compared to 2022. Now the defense are a lot better, obviously, and pitching's a lot better. And I'm glad they banned the shift. I think that was a good move in my part. But the bases, I could have kept the bases where they were, but not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm just a fan.
There you go.
I think the one thing that comes to my mind that we'll see back in baseball this year, we're going to find out who has range.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the
whole point of the shift. You didn't need to have range to be a shortstop the last 10, 15 years. Now you're going to have to get from second base to the third base hole. You didn't have to worry about it. You were 3 infielders on one side of the infield. So 2 steps to your left, 2 steps to your right. As long as you can cover that, make that play, you'll be fine. I think you're going to see Ozzie Smith style plays again in baseball, which will make the game exciting. Because I think that was one, as much as just sitting there watching guys going up swinging for the fences. The one thing I miss is watching great gloves making a diving play.
Mm-hmm.
How many times you don't see that play behind second base anymore, because usually the second baseman is playing behind second base.
Right.
Yep.
So yep. I think that's where you're going to see a nice change.
No, I agree. You mentioned that he was the first guy I thought of was, Ozzie Smith, Dave Concepcion, guys that could play the position, play it well. And what's more fun than a second baseman can go up behind the bag, plant and make a play. That's fun to watch.
Yeah.
To get there behind the bag, he snags it, plants and makes a good strong throw, whereas he's waiting for it, and I think part of it too, you mentioned guys going for home runs. I think if hitters would have just slapped the ball the other way, once in a while.
Yeah, that would have Yeah, I always thought the batters could have taken care of the shift themselves. Now, that's easy for us to say because we're not facing 98 miles. Everybody throws 98 miles an hour now, but all the guys have uppercut swings now. They're swinging. They're most of them are pull swingers, or pull hitters. You just see the Tony Gwynn slap, Wade Boggs slap, Derek Jeter to the right slap. You don't see that anymore.
Right. And the thing is, I was not a baseball player, but I was taught how to take the pitch that you got and hit it in the direction, whether it's a pull hit or an opposite field hit. I mean, I was taught that in high school. Are they not taught how to do that anymore?
No, they want to, they call it the 3 true outcomes, right? Walk, strikeout, or hit.
Yeah.
And you're hitting for, watching. I'm a big Yankee fan. I'm generally pretty level-headed sports-wise till I watch the Yankees and I get a little angry. A little goofy.
I understand.
Watching Joey Gallo whiff, it's like, my God.
Oh.
Yeah, don't get me.
I mean, look, he's hitting $148, and I couldn't hit $148 in my prime in the major leagues, but he should. That was just tough to watch.
Yeah, but he was getting paid for it.
Yeah, he was getting paid for it. Just seeing. It's funny. This is a name you guys may know. Who is fun to watch is Miguel Cabrera. He's on the end of his career for the Tigers. He's a hitter, right? He'll go opposite way. He's got power. He's got pop, but he'll take the pitch of the way. And I'm watching him, and I was talking to my dad at the time. He reminds me of Jack Duncan. You guys remember Jack Duncan from Norwood? He played double-A ball. Almost the same swing.
I played with
Miguel Cabrera. Never saw Jack Duncan swing, but there was a lot of similarity. Very little head movement, just quick wrists. A lot of that. Just a hitter.
He was.
I like watching Trout hit.
He was in the lineup on Sunday, and it was his last day there. Of course, this is his last season. Very smooth, and when you see him on TV, you think he's fat. He's just a big boy.
No, he's thick. Yeah, I mean
but he's got such a smooth swing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's earned it. He's a hitter. He's a professional hitter. That's what's fun to watch. Is watch. That's the beauty of baseball, right? Here's a guy. He's going to hit 3 whatever for his career, 315 probably, and 31. Was it 59 times out of 100? He makes it out. 69 times out of 100. Yeah. He fails, and he's great.
Well, Bob, this hour just flew right by. Can't thank you enough for coming on for our first show of our 4th season. I can't tell. I've lost track at this point, but I want to thank you for coming on. I know we worked hard at trying to get you on last fall.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it was between my boys and work, but I really appreciate your patience with me. It's great to see you guys, and Joey, thanks for all you do with basketball, and Pete and Dave, good to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you too.
That's going to be it for tonight here on ESS, Empire State Sports and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. For Joey, Dave, myself, Pete Gosselin, our very special guest, Bob Ahlfeld. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.